Hi, I'm Mitra Sorrells in the PhocusWire Studio, and joining me today to discuss some issues related to private accommodations, we have Jeff Hurst, who is Senior Vice President and General Manager of Vrbo. Hi,
Pleased
Jeff.
to be here.
Glad you're here. We have Terry Jones, who is an advisor to Stay, as well as, of course, the founder of Travelocity, a founding chairman of Kayak, and an author. And, and we have John Banczak, who is co-founder and CEO of Turnkey Vacation Rentals. So let's jump right in. A lot happening in this space, it seems, kind of an exciting time for sure. I'm curious, technology has enabled this asset-light business model. We've got car ride-sharing companies that don't own cars. We have accommodation companies that don't own apartments and hotels. But that lack of ownership doesn't mean a lack of responsibility, I assume. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, Jeff, and maybe how technology can facilitate some of that.
Yeah, and so, when we look back on what we've put in place to ensure a trusted marketplace, which we've been hard at work at for, over a decade, there's a few things we do that we think are kind of unique. And so we were one of the first to have a book with confidence guarantee, to where anything you book and pay through for our platform, we stand behind. Okay. And so in order to do that, there's a lot of technology, automated checks, removal, fraud checks, et cetera. But there's also a hell of a lot of people. And so, we have over 10,000 years of people experience in the category, and we're answering the phones, being sure issues get addressed, and have a trust and safety team that will manually inspect, listings when flagged, and then also be sure in work cases to be sure that the marketplace maintains trust, because we're in the business of being sure families take the best trips of their lives. So it's a really important use case, and we want them to end up in the perfect place.
And did I hear you say, so do you have that kind of 24/7 support if someone has an issue upon check-in or upon...
Right. We've got people answering the phones 24/7, 365 days a year, and we'll work with the owners or managers to be sure that we can either address or, remediate whatever the issue might be.
Okay. So, there's been a lot of coverage lately with some of these issues with Airbnb and such. But can technology really help in a situation like what they faced? I mean, what is the scope of the ability to solve some of these issues?
Yeah, so it can. If you look at our business model, we take over the full management of a home, much like a hotelier would manage their asset. When we do that, we've got a responsibility to both the guests and the neighbors. The responsibility of the guests is to get them in easily to the home, to have a home that's fully prepared, clean, ready to go. That's exactly what they booked. But it's also to keep them secure with a lock that doesn't have a key floating around to vendors. It's to keep them secure with full-time on-call security in every town. The responsibility to the neighbors, though, has to be managed, and technology is really the only way you can manage that. So most of the higher quality managers now are using some type of noise monitoring system in a home. It catches a party before it gets out of hand, and there's an escalation path then at a company like Turnkey to deal with it. Everything from starting with a phone call to the guest to deploying private contracted security, all the way to potentially calling the police. And in fact, in some of our larger, more expensive homes that are prone to bigger groups, we actually use video frequency monitoring in the front of the home. Okay. So we can tell how many people are passing by the home over a period of time. And if you see, 2 people pass by in 3 hours, it's not a big deal. But if you see 40 people pass by in 10 minutes, you know something's going on. And that triggers an intervention, whether it's a phone call, actual watching of the security cameras, or security being deployed. Okay. So there's a lot you can do now with technology that just was impossible even 5 years ago.
So Terry, I know you're an advisor to Stay, which is a startup that is attempting to address some of these issues by conducting an audit and providing a certification, a stamp of approval. Is that correct? Tell us a little bit more about that. And is that targeted more to the independent owners?
Yeah, it's targeted toward the independent owners, but anyone can use it, of course. And it's about certifying safety and security. Municipalities are worried about that. Certainly firms that market and license are worried about that, and owners are worried about that. So what we've done is, in a partnership with one of the big home inspection companies, we've developed software. So they go out, they have a software list. They're looking for all kinds of problems. Do they have smoke detectors? Is the lighting correct? Are the door locks there? Are there trip hazards? Are there fire hazards? The same kind of thing when they inspect your home, but they're looking at it a little bit differently. If the homeowner inspection passes and it has a charge from $99 to $300, depends on the size of your house. Then you get a certificate that you can post on the website, distribute, that says, we've been certified. And you pay someone $12 a month to stay in. And that gives peace of mind to the guest. It also can save money for the renter because we are offering liability insurance at a greatly reduced cost, comes out in January. And even you can get a reduction on your homeowner's insurance because your home's been inspected. So that kind of pays for it, but we're about helping provide peace of mind through certification.
And starting right now just in the U.S.?
Yeah, it's in the U.S. now. The company's actually a Canadian company. It's going to be in Canada as well.
Okay.
And we'll move around the world over time as we get bigger. But by finding a partnership with a good home inspection company, we've got the people on the ground, but we back it up with software that ensures that the inspection has been done and the house will be re-inspected after a year. We look again to make sure it's still okay.
So that addresses some of the issues related to sort of certifying, checking the property itself,
right,
potentially. And
it helps. And the municipalities, we think really like it because they're worried about this.
Sure.
They're having a lot of pressure to say, well, these home rentals should be held to the same standard as this hotel.
Right.
Well, that's not possible. But what is the standard, and how can it be administered?
And then there's some work that's done on the side as far as the hosts. I'm wondering the challenges around the guests. For example, Jeff, and maybe John, if you have some thoughts on that as well after, is it really possible to kind of verify the safety of the guests coming in? And
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different approaches for how marketplaces manage it. I mean, the first thing for us is we're focused on a target segment of families, going on vacations where, the risk profile is actually pretty different.
Okay.
Typically a long book to stay window, going to repeatable destinations, and we try to provide trust signals in the form of traveler verifications, social signals, profile creations, but then also give managers like Turnkey or individual owners contact information to help vet travelers prior to stay and as part of the booking process. And that frequently looks like expectation setting as it relates to house rules and who the owner or manager will accommodate and what any restrictions are related to the type of events they'll host or the type of parties they'll accept. But also just being sure that there's the opportunity for additional verification that can be more powered by the manager or owner.
Okay. And John?
Yeah, so again, when we take on a home, we're getting the keys from the owner to manage this on a permanent basis. And there's a responsibility to make sure that guests don't do some harm to the place or the neighborhood. So there's quite a bit of responsibility on us, probably more so than a marketplace. If something happens, you could argue it's our fault. So we actually screen guests pretty hard. In fact, we put them through a process that's identical to the same process you go through if you open up a new bank account.
Okay.
We make them verify things like an address they lived at 10 years ago. We make them verify a car that they drove. We make them verify several things using the same provider that the banks use.
Okay.
So we can 100% put an ID onto a person. We know exactly who they are. That allows us to do a real positive age check on them. It allows us to do a full background check on them. And it may sound a little bit onerous, but it's actually pretty easy to do online. Most guests get through it fairly easily. And we're smart about how we do it, right? You're not going to do it every time you book with us. You're going to do it once.
Right.
And it really serves two purposes. One is, yes, you do get the positive ID, but we found when we launched that, our fraud and our problems plummeted immediately because people who are going to go do something bad at a home, once they start to see that you're getting this positive ID on them, they back out and they go book somewhere else.
Right.
So it really was a big fork in the road for us around trust and security. We launched that almost 3 years ago.
Well, I think it's interesting the technology you're deploying as well, because not everybody starts out wanting to be bad.
That's right.
But
Yep.
party goes on and people end up being bad. And so one of the things we do is help people buy technology as well at discounts.
Okay.
Because you need a door lock that's easily changed, and you probably do want security cameras, and maybe they're not going to use AI to look at people on the street, but the more pieces of technology we can put around it to catch something when it's going on or prevent it from happening, the better off we all are.
That's right. That's right. It also really helps us rest easy at night as well. When a guest is in one of our homes, we know that no one else can get into that home. The lot codes have all expired except for the guest code. We rest easy. When they're in that home, we know that we've vetted them, and we're pretty comfortable that the owner's going to have a good experience. So it's hard to think of the days before we did these things and the possibilities that it opened up.
Right.
And they're really positive developments just for our own business and our own ease of operating.
So, one thing, I know there was some discussion on the panel that was done in reference to the fact that Booking has added the star ratings, and now we're talking about potentially, a Stay certification and, some other things. I just wonder, does it start to get confusing for the traveler, for the buyer to know what these different things mean? I mean, is that an issue at all?
Yeah, I think that there's a ton of opportunity in the shoppability of the category. And so these are not commodity products. Every home's unique. There's unique regulatory requirements, safety requirements, not to mention unique amenities and classes of service, if you will. And so, what we're focused on is trying to get as much data out of the ecosystem as possible to understand what travelers are looking for, what they value, and then merchandise that better. And so, depending on what we see from traveler behavior, we go and try and get more of that type of content. We are not using an approach that feels more like the STAR system, because the STAR system means something specific in countries around the world, oftentimes very specific in terms of what that compliance looks like. And so we're focused on, can we present inventory with the right characteristics that helps travelers make a decision? Because the lines do get very blurred now in terms of what the different accommodation types are and how somebody can go shop and experience and find the right place.
And one of the things we're working hard on, we're a tiny little company now, small, we've done 100 inspections. How do we make that certificate real for people? So
Right.
It's not the good housekeeping seal yet. So that's going to take a lot of work on the brand and a lot of explanation to people to say, you can trust this. But one of the nice things is online these days, you can click on a seal and it's going to tell you what happened and that the home was inspected, and hopefully that's believable to people. And as the PR rolls out, more people will say, oh, that home was inspected. I know what a home inspection is. That's good. I like that better than a home that wasn't.
Yeah.
I love the certification side of things. I think that it's going to become critical to have that. I'm not a buyer of the star rating process. One of my other businesses, I own a 4-star hotel, and star ratings in that space are hugely important, right? If you're a 3-star business, you're not going to command the premiums, you're not going to get the ADRs, you're not going to get luxury guests. If you're 4, you get them. In the vacation rental space, the problem with the star rating system is that people stay at different homes for different reasons, and I'll use Austin, Texas as a great example. If you come to Austin and you stay in South Congress, it's one of the more popular neighborhoods to visit, you're not going to find a 5-star home down there. You might not find a 4-star home, but those homes book like crazy because everybody wants to be by the outdoor Austin music venues. They want to be walking distance to South Congress. Slapping a star rating on those homes doesn't do anybody a service.
Right.
What does them a service is having great content. So if you have accurate photos, if you've got a virtual tour of the property, if you have a floor plan posted on your site, certification, you're managed by a trusted player, then a guest can make up their own mind whether that home is for them or not.
Right.
Having someone come and judge it and saying, that home's a 2-star, but something on the lake is a 5-star because it has a better aesthetic, doesn't really solve anything. You might actually harm the one owner completely unintentionally, and you might harm the guest in that they might not stay in a place that's perfect for them.
Yeah, I think that's right. The real art is an expectation setting.
Right.
And I think the danger in 4 and 5-star is like, do I think about a hotel being 4-star for the service or the linens or the public spaces? And depending on what that expectation is, you can get it grossly wrong with a vacation rental.
Well,
and
you
so,
have so much more variety in this product than in a hotel product. I mean, hotels are pretty homogeneous.
Yeah.
Even though they say they're not, they are. You know what you get.
Yep.
And a home, you don't know. I mean, they're wildly different, and for good reason. I might choose one, and you wouldn't choose it at all. So the level of description and certification is really important to explain to the buyer what they're getting, So they can, as opposed to this hotel, which has a Soviet list, I always call it that. It's like, we have spa, fax machine, pool, but I don't know what that means, right?
Yeah. And let's not
have-
forget, it's the fact that they're not homogeneous that has made it so appealing to
That's
so
right.
many people. So
I also think what often is forgotten is the owner element at stake here, right? If you're talking to the GM of a hotel and you explain to them why they got a 3-star, that person's going to be rational about why that happened. If you go to an owner and tell them that their home is not a 5-star, it's a 5-star in every owner's mind.
Yeah.
If you go to them and say, I've judged you to have a 2-star home,
Right.
you have just alienated that owner, and they're going to look somewhere else for their business. God forbid Turnkey has to make that judgment call, because everyone's going to be a 5-star, right? Every owner thinks they have a 5-star home. So I think it's missing the whole point of this, in that it's unique, and it can't be fit into a box.
yeah. So maybe, it's interesting because obviously this whole industry is still very much in evolution and development. And so trying to fit it into the narrow scope of a hotel mindset is not necessarily.
It's already broken.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's too much differentiation for the hotel experience to be the right experience for individual homes all over the world.
Yeah, and Vrbo has been around for 21 years now.
24.
24 years,
Yeah.
right? So it's been working for a long, long time. Even back in the day before there were consumer ratings, right? It's now that it's become ubiquitous that you're starting to see these things pop up.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we're about out of time, but I thank you so much. It's been an interesting conversation. I'm sure if I see you guys next year, maybe we can reconvene and see what the hot topic is next year at this time. So, John, Terry, Jeff, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.